a start, please. They picked up I'm not in the best of health. Mr. Ling earlier gave me the cheery news that given what's happened to other people, I should only expect another week of this, so that was very good of him. Okay, item 1, apologies for absence, legal or present. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, can we agree those? Thank you. Item 3, confirm or vary the order of business, propose we keep it as is. Item 4, are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Move on to item 5 then, urban character supplementary planning document. Councillor Jones. Now we know who you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to bring this paper to Executive, back to Executive, because it has already been once, was welcomed cross-party, the Urban Character Supplementary Planning document, but to remind people briefly, it comprises 4 areas of Ipswich, inner Ipswich, I suppose you call it, listed under 2.4, and it's those areas of the town, those neighbourhoods not covered already by our 14 conservation areas. And they're rather lovely documents you can't quite appreciate in black and white, but you can in colour and online. And what Mike Taylor, our urban design officer, has done is to define by means of description and by photographs what constitutes local distinctiveness, what might make an area, a street, a neighbourhood special. So it could be whole buildings and smaller architectural details such as materials, doorways, windows, and so on. And it can be used when determining planning applications for new developments or for extensions and conversions by our officers. And in fact, Mr. Taylor said that it's already used, usefully, the interim document in looking at applications that have been made. So, Chair, it's come here before, it has been out to consultation. Only 2 alterations, I think it's 2 alterations, have been made. And for the life of me, I can remember one of them is now, which was under the Article 4 directive, which follows this, is not to include what effectively solar panels as part of the things that have to come for a planning application. Oh, and I think the other one was Geneva and Cecil Road, which we have put into the Norwich Road character area, which was excluded before, but Mr. Taylor might want to add to those differences between the first and the second document. So, Chair, I'm happy to bring it forward and recommend it go to Council for adoption.
Do you wish to add anything, Mr. Taylor, at this point?
No, I don't understand. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? No? Can we agree?
I'll just add, I would like noted our thanks to you and anybody else who's helped to because this has been a rather a very good piece of work and very lovely looking. You know, it's a very interesting document that has history, topography and architecture and more besides in each area.
Can we agree the recommendations?
Agree.
Thank you. And move on to item 6, Marlborough Road Conservation Area Designation. Councillor Jones.
This follows, Chair, our having approved, well, to go to Council. This Marlborough Road Conservation Area. This brings to us a new conservation area. And basically it is Marlborough Road, Tolworth Road, and it's been out to consultation. Everybody pretty much is very happy with it. It has two alterations. One, the microgeneration element that I mentioned before, and secondly, number 14, Marlborough Road, which was not in the original designation, that has now been included. And basically, it's defined by the architectural and historical distinctiveness of having been built by one architect, Arthur Wing, and number 14 by Mr. Sherman. So people are happy. I think it's a good addition to what we have already, and happy to bring it to Executive Chair.
Do you wish to add anything, Tony?
No, thanks. That's fine. Thank you.
Again, are there any questions or comments on this report? No, thank you. So can we move this on to full council? And item 7 then, Marlborough Road, architectural direction.
Chair, this is where the microgeneration reference comes in, actually, and not really. It's once we have a conservation area, it actually means that there are certain things that you have to apply for planning permission for if you want to do them to your house. And I think most usefully that is listed under section 3 on page 132, and then on page 143 we actually have under appendix B all those things which a house owner will be required to apply for planning permission for if they want to do them. So it is things like satellite dishes, or if you want to alter the roofs, or you want to paint the actual walls, external walls of your house and so on. And that's very proper, because otherwise you would change. Without that, you could demolish bits of the conservation area practically, and you would not want that. That's it, Chair.
Again, do you wish to add anything, Mr. Taylor?
No, thank you.
Thanks. And are there any questions or comments on this report? No. So again, we'll move this on to next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to item 8, empty homes update. Councillor Morris.
Madam, I don't know whether I've done food to this.
We are in business, Chair. Chair, we've discussed empty homes, long-term empty homes in the past, and the actions that we're taking via the Claire Lovell, who is here, and her staff. There's been a number of these that have come to Executive, as you well know. And we've agreed CPOs to be pursued where necessary. It was agreed at a previous meeting that perhaps we ought to have a more detailed update, and that more detailed update is here. I think this gives you all the kind of information, were you to have not had that before, about the amount of work that goes on, in the sense that we don't just pick a long-term empty home and say, right, we're going to go for a CPO here, let's set Claire Lovell at that. There's a lot of work that goes on to try to avoid getting to that stage, and even at that stage, as you should by now know, we do have words with the owners, and we quite frequently are able to get them to do something themselves, which makes the actual formal CPO unnecessary. But as you will see from those details, I mean, apart from the first two that I mentioned, which are quite a while ago, We have had quite a number of these, and I hope that this helps to demonstrate that we are very serious about dealing with long-term empty properties. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Morris, do you wish to add to this? Are there any questions or comments on the report?
Chair, I just want to say, I think the really good detail here is in 5.6 where it states that we brought 110 properties into use where they weren't used as means before, and now they are. And that is really a benefit.
Discussion, anything else? I think it's a very useful report. We don't normally take reports just for note into executive, but we did agree earlier on a very significant empty earnings budget, which is needed. We need the funds to back the CPO, even if likelihood is that it won't actually be taken through. And we have agreed a large number, I think probably more in the last 3 years than in the past 30 put together. So I think it is useful that we've seen that those processes are going through, and that we are actually starting to get these long-term empty homes back into use. Do you want to put anything, Councillor Morris?
No, other than to ask people to note it.
Next, can we note the report? Okay, then move on to item 9, annual rent increase.
Thank you, Chair. It's that time of year when we review council house rents. Last year, when we were detailing the housing business plan, we intimated that we would be accepting the government guideline for rent increase for 2015-16, the year we're discussing today. And the report, as you will see, recommends an increase of 2.2%, and that is based on the government guideline precisely, which is the CPI as at September, which was 1.2% plus 1%, and that gives an increase of £1.79 a week on average. So this report and this increase will enable us to continue along with the figures included in our housing business plan, which we now have to have, of course, because anything that goes out by way of expenditure from the housing revenue account obviously has to be met, and these days has to be met purely from rents. This increase will allow for that, and I ask you all to consider that and hopefully to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Ms. Burth, would you want to add anything at this stage? Any questions or comments? Councillor Chinch.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. In 8.4, it says the increase of 2.2 will be applied to all tenancies, and if they have full housing benefit, the 2.2 will be covered, and for those on partial entitlement, their benefit will be recalculated and adjusted pro rata. So my first question is, how many are fully paying their rent, and how many are receiving full housing benefit, and how many are receiving partial benefit? The point I'm making there, I suppose, is that for those that are receiving full housing benefit or partial, really what's happening is the taxpayer is having to pay the 2.2% in an indirect way and going roundabout. The second point I want to make is I'd like to ask the administration why, when they have been moaning about the cost of living, that for I think a third year in a row, that can be confirmed as well, that this is an above inflation increase, albeit recommended by the government but not a rule. So the one area where we have influence, if we're worried about the cost of living, is not to do this above inflation but just to do a rise by inflation. And I'd love to know how you can justify that, unless of course you're now admitting that the cost of living is going down, with food going down, oil going down, lots of things energy going down, tax. You don't think there's a cost of living worry anymore. So that's my second question. And I think I've got another one, but I'll wait to see what the answers are, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the On the housing benefit issues, I can give you some information there. There's some 3,100 odd tenants, which is about 40%, who receive full housing benefit. They are tenants, and about 2,070 who are on partial housing benefit. Many of these recipients, of course, of benefits are people who work, which is one of the sad states of circumstance that we find ourselves in, that so many people have to rely on housing benefit even though they work, and something which I think most of us are fairly well ashamed of. But they're the figures in respect of that. I would also perhaps like to make it clear here that it's not just council tenants who receive housing benefit. Private tenants receive housing benefit. They tend to receive more than council tenants, and housing association tenants obviously receive more as receive housing benefit as well, and they tend to receive more than council tenants. So there's a considerable number of people who do receive housing benefit. The cost of living, I'm not sure what Councillor Chintz is getting at about the cost of living and saying what else we're taking into account. When we fix or recommend an increase in rent figure, we don't just say what's a reasonable figure at the moment. You know, what we have to do, we have a housing business plan over a number of years, and we have to make sure that everything included in that plan can be paid for. We could, of course, say, well, although we've got that plan, we'll more or less throw that out of the window, and we won't make sure that the income that we were anticipating and planning that would be coming in, we'll discount that, which would mean, of course, that things would have to be cut out of the housing revenue account. It's not just a question of a price, it's a question of what you get for the money we pay. And it's always amazed me, this aspect, that if a shop had a sign in a window that says cheap, £75, people would not say, God, I'm going to go in there and get that for 75 quid. They'd say, what are we getting for our money? And this is the case with housing. We only get, council tenants only get what they pay for from their rents. And therefore, if we don't apply a rent increase, such as we're recommending today, something would have to suffer. Now, as I said, we are recommending an increase in line with the government's guidelines. I don't see that this is a matter concerning the cost of living issue. There is a cost of living problem. If anybody suggests there isn't, they've got it completely wrong. But cost of living situation and housing situation are two completely separate issues. It's not as if we're saying this is a good year to ram up the rents. We are suggesting that we will abide not only by what the government guideline is, but what we said we would do last year. I'd also just finally say on that this has been reported and discussed at the area housing panels and also at the housing working group. Thank you, Chair.
Well, first of all, we know that this coalition government has allowed us to keep our receipts, so therefore that means we can build more council houses. So the money, obviously, the more you can raise, the more you can put into that little pot as well. But I want to take you up on the issue about housing benefit in private and that people work. Yes, but a lot of them work part-time and they don't have enough money, so therefore they're supplemented by housing benefits. So I don't think we can necessarily look at that, because some will be part-time workers, some will be full-time workers. Private tenants already pay much, much more than council tenants, so I don't think we can compare that. I'm literally saying that with that amount of people receiving housing benefit, it is actually the taxpayer that is paying the increase, because they haven't got to find it. The taxpayer will have to find it. We're giving it to them through housing benefit. So I can't support it. I don't see why we have to go with the government guidelines. I think this was an opportunity to say we wouldn't. If you planned it last year, then that was where it all went wrong, because I think we should be our own boss. This is our only chance to have influence over the cost of living of people in our council houses, and we've not taken the opportunity. And it's 3 years ago, and if I remember last year, it was a huge increase that we did with our council tenants. I can't remember it exactly, was that 6%? Something like that?
No, that was yours.
Last year?
No. The
Last year.
no. I think you're getting confused with, say, an enormous extent. It was a higher percentage increase last year in accordance with the government guideline at the time.
It's a guideline.
But perhaps you're thinking of the increase of 6.4%, which was the last one you agreed to when you were in opposition.
But that
when you were in
was
control.
years ago, and circumstances are different. We're talking about now, and the circumstances now, and you saying there is a cost of living problem, and yet you don't take the opportunity to just raise their rent by inflation. That's the question I'm asking, not what I would do or what we did.
I mean, we need to bear in mind this is the lowest rent increase for 5 years. I think that is to be welcomed. I think it is the fact that the final year that the Conservatives were in charge of this council, and Councillor Chenchi was on the executive, she voted in favour of a 6.4% increase, which is 3 times the rate that she's protesting about now. If I could just ask you a couple of questions just to clarify your position, Councillor Chenchi. You're obviously not in favour of this increase. What increase?
No, my group is not in favour of this increase.
What increase would you propose if you were running the council?
Inflation.
CPI inflation. Okay. And would that be for just for this year, or would that be up for all future years?
It depended. If we didn't feel that there were challenges, which we do agree there are still challenges at the moment, and there will be for a little while, but if there are not those challenges, then you look at the situation as it is at the time and what you want to do with it.
So
to ask the taxpayer to pay more so that we can build more council houses, that's where I have an issue. But I'm here representing my group, and my group do not agree with 2.2%.
So CPI
Especially,
so thank you, Councillor Chenchi. So CPI this year, but you're reserving your position for future years? Or you think we could definitely have CPI for next year, or the year after?
we look at it again next year. I might agree with you next year.
And can you tell me what the reduction in income for the housing revenue account would be for this year and over the life of the 30-year plan if we were to bring in a CPI increase?
Shall I put it to you in writing? Because I couldn't possibly tell you that at the top of my head.
Okay. If you don't have figures, so I'm presuming you haven't got any proposals for how you would meet that reduction in
No,
predicted
because I'm not
increase?
putting in an alternative thing. I'm just saying that we're
Well-
not going to agree to it. It's going to get passed, isn't it?
Well, if
I'm
you're
not-
saying
I'm
you
not
don't,
about to
if you're saying you don't agree with something, Councillor Chenchi, then you have to have a workable solution, alternative solution. Otherwise, you're just posturing, aren't you?
Oh, then I'm posturing.
Fine. Can you confirm that you are in favour of the bedroom tax?
Yes. And I don't call it the bedroom tax. It's a reduction in housing benefit.
It is a reduction in housing benefit, you're absolutely right. And it's reduced the housing benefit of some of our tenants by up to £24 a week. Yet you were complaining about an increase in rents of less than £2 a week.
Completely different scenario.
Not for the people
With a
who,
different
not for the
outcome.
1,000 tenants of ours that were affected by it. It has affected them massively more
Yeah,
than this
it
increase
has.
will.
It's a transition policy.
Thank you.
It's very different.
Can I also just say you obviously are not happy with the fact that we're bringing in the lowest rent increase for 5 years and that we're following your government guidelines. Presumably you would be even more vehemently opposed to a council which brought in an even higher rent increase.
Well, what scenario is that? I don't know what you mean.
Well,
Another
there's-
council in another town?
Yes.
Possibly, yeah. It depends on
Well,
the situation. But yes, I
the
probably
rate of
would.
inflation is the same across the country.
Yeah,
So
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah, no, I would.
absolutely. So Conservative controlled mid-Suffolk,
Mhm.
who were putting their rents up by 2.5%. That's worse than us.
Yeah.
So therefore they should be condemned more than us.
Yes, perhaps we should.
Conservative controlled Labour, who are putting up their rents by 2.7%. That's even worse than Mid-Suffolk, so they should have even more condemnation.
It depends what they did last year and what their plans are.
They
I
put up
can't
their
comment.
they put up their rents by more than us last year.
Okay, well, I would condemn that too. I'm only worried about Ipswich. I'm not concerned
Okay.
about outside.
And Conservative controlled Waveney,
Mhm.
who are putting theirs up by 3.1%. That would be even more disgraceful
So
in your
we're
view.
equally posturing here, are we, Councillor Smith?
I'm just
Can we-
saying that there
Can we
seems
agree that that's what we're both doing?
no, I'm just saying that there seems to be a differential here between Ipswich, who were brought in the lowest council rent increase for 5 years, which you're saying is disgraceful.
No, I didn't say
And-
it's disgraceful.
And you're going to the media and complain about it. You seem to be slightly less vehemently opposed to much bigger rent increases brought in by your
It's
colleagues
a
in the
completely,
Conservative
it's a
Party.
completely different thing. I am not interested in them. I am only here on behalf of the Ipswich residents.
We shall see.
Councillor Chenchi, a Conservative, can we I just want to be reassured you are representing the Conservative group,
My Conservative group, yes.
But
just so I remember.
I do believe that these points are
We're a
relevant
democracy.
because if a political party is attempting to claim that if they were running the council, they would do something differently than us, I think we've got to look at the evidence. The evidence is that the last year your group was running this council, Councillor Chinchi, you increased rents by 3 times more than this. That's the evidence. And the evidence. And the
That's
evidence.
4 years ago. That's 4 years ago. Circumstances were different then. We can look at, we can keep
But
going
you
back.
believe-
I can come
but-
up with
but
the
you
council
believe-
tax increase that Labour did that put 18% on my council tax when I was a single parent. But that's years ago. I'm forgiving you.
But you believed that the last time you were in charge of this council, that a rent increase of 6.4%, 3 times more than we're bringing in this year, was acceptable. And also, so that is one bit of evidence that I think people will weigh up. And the other bit of evidence is that where we have got Conservatives running councils in this very county, where they're running councils, they are putting up rents by more than this Labour council. Conservative controlled Mid-Suffolk, 2.5%. Conservative controlled Labour, 2.7%. Conservative controlled Labour,
You need to ask
3.1%.
them why, not me.
And I think people will
I've got
therefore,
enough to do.
and I think people will therefore reasonably form a point of view that if, in actual fact, if you were running this council, Councillor Chenchi, rents would not.
Give me 5 years, Councillor Anthony.
I think it will take you more than 5 years,
We'll see.
Councillor Chenchi. Councillor Cook, I believe you wanted to
All
say
the fun's
something.
over.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was struck by a certain paradox in what Councillor Chenchi was saying, because on the one hand, she was rightly pointing out that it's the taxpayer generally that funds housing benefit. Surely then it's a good thing that we're building council houses in Ipswich, which have a lower rent and therefore a lower requirement for housing benefit than the private sector houses, which we hope that they will to some extent displace or at least influence the market around. So, that to me is a good thing, that we are introducing council houses with lower rents. But I wanted to just ask a little bit further about Councillor Chenchi's position in terms of the housing revenue business account. Because what you're saying, Councillor Ellesmere, is that, that on the one hand is what you pay and on the other hand is what you get. A large element of what we spend actually is to deliver improvements and repairs to the existing stock of houses that we have, more than 8,000. That's where the vast majority of the money, the vast majority of the capital that we spend every year on housing revenue actually goes. So I'm curious to know, with Councillor Chenchi's lower proposed rate, what element of the Ipswich standard would it be that would be compromised or reduced in order to balance the books?
I think we've already heard from Councillor Chenchi that she's got no idea how she would balance the books. Is that a fair assumption, Councillor Chenchi? Is that a fair summary of what you said?
Yes, actually at this moment in time, if that's what you want to say, I think this is becoming a little boring now. You haven't really answered the questions that I've asked. You've just turned it around, obviously very well prepared. So fine, you've had your fun.
I'm certainly better prepared than you, Councillor Chenchi.
Oh, well, as always.
But that's because we're running the council
Yeah,
and we're having to
exactly.
make proper decisions here rather than just political posturing. Are there any other questions? Councillor Morris, you wish to start?
Only just one sentence. I mean, Councillor Chency says, you know, we've had fun, or was that? I mean, we're not here to have fun and to mess about with this kind of thing. I don't often say this, but I don't believe Councillor Chency, if she was in control of this council, would propose an increase dissimilar to what that we're putting forward tonight, or at least in what we're putting forward tonight. I just don't believe that, and I hope that if that is the case, that I'm correct, and she doesn't really mean that. I hope that some people at some stage will be prepared to retract that, because I just don't believe it's true. But when Councillor Chency also just said that when you mentioned other councils that were proposing increases greater than us, she said, well, they are different. What, you know, they've suggested that they've got nothing in common with us. The one thing they have in common with us is what we're discussing tonight, the housing business plan. I presume Baber will have a housing business plan, as will Mid Suffolk, and so will Waveney. And they presumably, hopefully, will be setting their increase in exactly the same way as we are. They will be looking at a government guideline, but they will be looking at their housing business plan, assumably, to say, how are we going to continue to provide this kind of service, whatever that might be, with regard to a rent. And they will come up with a proposed rent increase. And our rent increase, to enable our business plan to continue, is as recommended tonight. So I recommend it.
Thank you. We have all those in favour and those against. Thank you. We then move on to item 10, to agree loans from museum to an exhibition in Nanjing, China. Councillor Redkin.
Thank you. This is a very interesting opportunity for items from our collection to go considerable distance to China. The list that we're being asked to approve tonight isn't necessarily all the items that will go, because as you'll see from the report, a group of students from China are going to select items. So it's possible that not all of them will go. They've been selected because in the main they demonstrate what people in this country did with products that they traded and brought back from China. So silk, for example, in the form of clothing, and accessories, I think is the word I would use to describe some of the other items. And this is going to be hopefully a real opportunity to showcase Ipswich in a very different setting. As you'll see, it's had the support of the Friends of the Museums, which I'm delighted to see. A very good suggestion is, in fact, those items that are selected are put on display when they come back, because I think that would be interesting. And of course, it's an opportunity, whilst things are away, for us to use the space that they occupy to show things that are normally we haven't got the space to display at the moment, although in the next paper we will come to more opportunities of displaying items. So I'm pleased to welcome this report and happy to take any questions, Chair.
Do you wish to add anything, Mr. Moore?
Not at this stage, thank you, Chair.
Any questions or comments? No? Can we do the recommendation?
Please.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 11, HLF Stage 1 application for the Ipswich Arts and Museum project. Councillor Redkin.
Thank you. As you'll be aware, the last time that we applied for HLF money for the museum, they didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. So we are applying again after further discussion with them, some tweaking around the nature of the funds that we're applying for, more of a separation really between the museum and the money that we also asked from the Arts Council for. It's pretty well detailed here with the latest iteration of the designs that you can see. I hope that they've been reflected. They've been pretty well reflected in the papers that we've got here, the photographs that are used here, and the detail of the report. It's a very particular way in which the bids have to be submitted to the HLF, which explains some of the wording and the nature of the layout of the text that has been sent to them. So this is a really exciting project. As I said, the opportunity to show more items because some of them are going to China. Actually, what we really need is a lot more space to show a lot more items, and this incredible opportunity to actually open up our museum collection, to open up the experience of people who come, who can enjoy what is really an incredible set of buildings. That every time I go to the buildings of the museum and the art school, the whole of that campus, as we're calling it, I see something different, something new, and I think it will be an incredible opportunity for Ipswich to tell the story of the town and to have pride in the town, which we need to have, and we need space to show more of the wonderful things in our collection. I'm delighted to say that there is a splendid bear on display in Church Mansion at the moment, which is the first of our People's Choice. The people in the form of the East Anglian Daily Times, their correspondent, he's the first one. And he's chosen this splendid bear, which is his favourite object in the museum. So, I mean, there's a tremendous affection amongst the people of this town for the museum and for its contents, and anything we can do to improve that, I think, is all to the good. And hopefully, this money from the HLF, if it's forthcoming, will enable us to do that even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Although Mr. Moore wrote the report, I noticed he stepped away from the table. So do I take it that you're doing the business?
I think both Mr. Moore and I would be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Chench.
Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Helen, who came to our group meeting and did a very good presentation to us last night, leaving us all very excited, actually. We think this is absolutely fantastic. The drawings just look amazing, and I'm going to be gutted if this doesn't go ahead. So good luck with that. You know, if there's anything we can do, we will gladly join in. This is going to be fabulous, and people will come from miles to come and look at this. So well done to everybody involved. I've got a couple of questions. One was from Councillor Phillips, actually. He wanted to know, in the audit and governance meeting, it was talking about logging all the artefacts, which would take many years. Will this speed that up because there's going to be that temporary closure? So does that actually help that? And someone else was asking about Colchester and how that affects them. Or do we even care? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it will dramatically speed up the documentation process to ensure executive. There is documentation for the entire collection, but some of it is still in the handwritten logbooks of the curators from the Victorian period, and obviously we need to digitise those records so that they're more easily searchable and that kind of thing. So regrettably the museum would have to close for a period of time in order to do the works and then reopen it in the fashion that we're talking about. That will allow us to actually work our way through the entire collection, do the documentation, make sure everything's got a conservation plan, all of that kind of thing, in order to make sure it's all in order by the time we reopen. With regard to Colchester, the existing Colchester Ipswich Museum's Joint Committee Agreement runs until March 2018, and officers from the two authorities are looking at whether anything would need to change in order to extend that for any period, and in due course there may well be a report from the Committee Executive and then on to Council for a decision, but we're nowhere near needing to do that just yet. We're only in 2015.
What would the dates be for the final law?
In terms of the lottery bid, it will depend on when we submit. So you'll see from the report there are 4 bidding rounds this year. The recommendations ask for authority to pick the most appropriate bid depending on the conversations that we continue to have with the lottery folk. So the very latest that we would hear, looking for the dates, would be November this year, so that's set out at paragraph 13.2. We will of course let the executive know when we've submitted, so you know when to expect the result.
Lovely, thanks very much.
Did you say you had another question, Councillor Chench?
No, I gave the two together. Thank you.
Anybody else? No, I mean, this is a fantastic project. I think the illustrations give some idea of it, but for me, the thing that really brought it to life was the walk-through, fly-through video that we've got. Are there any plans to try and make that more widely available? Because I think that's something that really enthused the public when they see it.
So you'll see reference in the report, Chair, to some work that's happening at the moment to plan some public exhibitions and consultation events, whereby we will take people through the plans, and actually the fly-through we didn't have time to go through at Conservative Group last night, but I'm happy to show it to you another time. It really does bring the project to life, and all the images that we've got will help to demonstrate to people what the site will look like going forward. But that consultation and engagement will also help us to start planning what objects to put in each gallery and some of the stories that we want to tell as well, in order to help us to make sure that we've got real community ownership of the museum itself.
I was hearing the word YouTube. That makes a lot of sense. Councillor Lucky, do you want to say something?
No, other than to thank officers. This has been an incredibly intensive piece of work, and as I say, it's a very strict template here. So not least actually getting through the process of submitting this has been an incredible amount of work. I'm very grateful to officers for having done that and spent many hours crafting what we hope. Well, we know it explains our case, and we hope will be successful.
Thank you. Can we read recommendations at 14?
Agreed.
Thank you. We move on to item 12, North West Ipswich Skate Park projects. Councillor Atkins.
Thank you. I'm sorry that Councillor Connolly can't be with us tonight, because he has done a sterling job in getting this to the stage that it's at. So I'm really pleased that money has been levered, that's the word, from both the Big Lottery Trust, the BLT, and from SITA in order to provide this facility, which has, you'll see there's been a lot of consultation, I think mostly through BLT, which has said that some facility for young people is needed in this part of the town, and it's really good that we've got to this stage. There will now be, hopefully if you agree, friends, there will be a procurement process, and we will now go through all the necessary consents that are necessary to have the skate park. But really what we're seeking here is your approval here for this. And if Steve were here, I'm sure Sophie would say that he would be very excited, because this is very much community-led project in North West Ipswich. So I'm delighted to bring this to you. And there's one question I'm aware of. But
Yes, we had a question from Councillor Lockington.
Yes, can I just read it from, just a very short.
You've managed to wedge yourself in the back there, but yes.
Yes.
Read it out.
Does Ipswich Borough Council need to have special insurance for a skate park, or is it covered in the same way as any other play equipment should an accident happen? Because I felt that was missing in the report, something about the insurance. Maybe it's just straightforward and that's fine.
Councillor.
it is straightforward. I consulted with a service user this evening. My son, who's a regular user of the Stoke Bridge Road, said, was he aware of the signage that was already there? He said he was. He said that there don't seem to me, from what he says, to be that many moving parts, and in fact, in terms of sort of maintenance and the risk involved, it's an older user group than younger children who use play areas that we have already, so they're fairly adult and more self-sufficient, frankly, in how they use the equipment that's there, and manage risk. I had quite an interesting discussion with them about how they do that. And there have also been some emails that have gone around between officers today just to clarify, I'm looking at Mr. Bing, so that, I don't know why, to say that is the case. It's about risk management, and our usual insurance procedures would apply, so no, there's nothing special that's required for that.
Are there any other comments, questions about the report?
The only thing I would add is that I'm going to ask Steve Connolly to be the opening skater.
I think perhaps if he knew that, he may well not have been quite so keen on the project.
It was a problem.
You might also be interested in the question about insurance.
But it is a great project. That was great tribute to Councillor Connolly and the other councillors in the North West for managing to bring this forward and managing to find the necessary funding. And if it's anything like the Stoke Bridge skate park, it will be a very, very popular facility. Can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Move on to item 13, vehicle maintenance contract. Councillor Cook.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you will know, the council maintains a fleet of significant number of vehicles, specialist vehicles like refuse trucks, skid lorries, road sweepers, light commercial vehicles like vans and cars, and specialist equipment like tractors, lawn mowers and so on, that tend to be used mostly in parks and open spaces. So at the moment, the sort of status quo that we have is that we have a 7-year contract with a company called G-Sync Norba, which was taken out in 2008 and ends on the 31st of March. That covers the specialist vehicles and the light commercial vehicles and costs us today £523,000 a year. And that covers us for things really like servicing, regular inspections, repairs, all of that sort of thing. So with this contract coming to an end, obviously we've been making preparations to replace it, and decision was taken earlier to put this work out to open tender. When I say the work, I mean both the specialist vehicles and light commercial that are outside the council today, and also the tractors and lawn mowers and such like that are currently in-house. So the whole caboodle has been put out to tender, separated out into 3 schedules that are explained in the report to try and sort of maximise the number of different options and flexibility points that we might have. So what we also noted was that in the past, when we put this work out to tender, there had been some degree of limited interest from potential suppliers, and we sought to mitigate that by first of all offering as a facility the use of a workshop at Constantine Road, because the availability of local premises one potential barrier to bidders, and also the risk associated with a kind of fixed price which takes into account an unquantified level of sort of repairs and breakdowns. We've sought to sort of take that out of the equation as well, by the council effectively taking on that risk, which we can fairly well quantify because we know what the reliability of our fleet is. So undertaking this, 23 interested suppliers came forward, and ultimately we got 8 bids which are detailed in the exhibit appendix. A number of different permutations and combinations. They were evaluated as usual on basis of cost and quality, with the result that the most beneficial combination was to put the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 vehicles across to supplier A, and to retain the Schedule 3 vehicles, which are the tractors, lawnmowers, etc., on an in-house arrangement. So taking into account the price that's been bid for that work on Schedule 1 and 2, our costs for doing Schedule 3 in-house, and the additional cost which we're factoring in, shown in section 9.4, of appointing an assistant fleet manager to help keep tabs on the new contract. Even after that appointment, we're anticipating savings here, as you can see, of £100,000 a year, or £500,000 over the 5-year life of the contract, which I think is quite a welcome result, to put it mildly, and a huge savings there. As you know, in the medium-term financial plan, we've got what we call the big ticket items. One of those is procurement, and this procurement exercise on its own will go 20% of the way to us meeting our target for that particular big ticket item. So we're really pleased with the result here. Thanks go to Matthew Lynn as well, and other officers for the work that have been put into getting us this result. and I guess they will probably ask some questions on tractors and lawnmowers if required.
Mr. Ling, do you want to add anything at this
Is anything
point?
else going at this point?
No. Are there any questions or comments? No, I mean, very, very good results. A significant annual saving. And I think it shows that, you know, I mean, I'm not suggesting that this one was particularly easy, but it shows that there are savings that can be made through curriculum events. And I think this one, this very early reading, does give us some confidence that we will be able to make that savings target for that particular big ticket item as in the coming years. Can we agree the recommendations? Thank you. Thank you. And move on to item 14, appointment of reactive maintenance contractors for housing stock, Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a brief report which I believe is self-explanatory. This deals with contractors for a number of relatively small packages for reactive maintenance work, which it shows in here. When I say that kind of work, that's in supplement to our maintenance and contracts, our own direct trade force, that is. And so the details for councillors will be included, or is included, in the exempt part of this agenda under item 19, but I think that's straightforward and I recommend it to you.
Thank you. The officers wish to add anything at this stage? Any questions or comments? Councillor Chenchy.
I would have a question to ask when we get to the purple papers. I just thought I'd mention that because the officers thought they could go home. Sorry.
Chair, could I, sorry, perhaps I just ought to mention, and Councillor Chency's comment has put me on notice perhaps of this. I mean, the various packages are listed, of course. One of the things was plumbing, and I know that Councillor Chency may have, I nearly said an interest in that. I mean, she probably has got an interest in that. But plumbing and plastering and asphalting, etc. So I thought I should make that quite clear. Thank you.
Okay, so subject to the questions coming later. Can we agree the recommendations report?
Yeah.
Thank you. And move to item 15. Can be moved to exclude members of the public so we can discuss matters of substance. Thank you very much.